Hey guys, so this whole unit is about basic tools of geometry. So we're going to start off with the really simple stuff. Hopefully you find it simple too. We've got three things to learn about today. It's points, lines, and planes. So let's get started. In this first box, we've got what is known as an exact location in space, which is a point. Now let's take a look at the 3 points that are here. You see that they're all labeled with a letter, and that's the way we write a point. So these 3 points we could either write, for example, point A, or if you want to be lazy, and truthfully this is usually what happens, we could just simply write the capital letter A. So it just takes simply one letter to name a point. Now a point doesn't have any size and no dimension either, so that means it's infinitely small, and really the dot that we use to represent it is just the best we can do. Sharpen your pencil the best you can and put the smallest, tiniest dot you can on there to represent a point. But you need to understand that a point really has no size at all. If you could zoom in enough on your little tiny dot, you would see that there's still some kind of measurable size to it. So it's only something we can think about in our mind, the size of a point being 0, but we do represent them with a dot. Okay, next is line. Now a line is an infinite number of points extended in both directions along what we call one dimension. Like a point had no dimension, a line has one dimension. That dimension happens to be its length, which is infinitely long. As you can see, this goes forever in both directions, and that's why we have the arrows. Now, to name a line, what you want to do is name any 2 points that are on that line. So we named one letter for a point. For a line, it's going to be 2 letters. So we see point P and point Q are both on this line. So I'm going to name it with, I'd first draw this line symbol, and then I choose to name it line PQ. Now, does the order matter? No. So I also could have named this line QP. Now, even though there's only 2 points that are identified on the line, that doesn't mean that's all the points there are. There's an infinite number of them. There's only just 2 that happen to be named. So I could put another point on here. Let me give it a name of E. And then I could name this line another way. I could name it line maybe PE in honor of our PE teachers. The way I don't name it, however, is I don't list all the points that I see. It would be wrong, mainly because it takes too much time. We could do this forever if I name all the points on it. So I would not name it line PEQ like this. So you need to remember, 1 letter names a point, 2 letters names a line. Now, there is an alternative way to name it. You see this little g right here, lowercase g. You'll see that sometimes. And if you do, then you can name it line G. That's just naming the entire line as one object. Okay, now, something before we go on. Points that lie on the same line. There's a name for that, and the name is collinear. You spell that C-O-L-I-N-E-A-R. And now that I've written it down, it's really 2 L's. Collinear, 2 L's in there. Now think about what that means. Collinear, like co-worker, somebody you work with. Collinear, co is for being together, and then you see the word line in here. Collinear means they're on the same line. So in this picture you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points all on line W. Those points are all considered collinear. Now, if there was a point not on the line, so maybe above it or below it, let me put a point right here and call it point U, then that point would not be collinear with the other points. So there's a name for that also, and it's called non-collinear. We're getting really, really creative. Non-collinear is just the opposite of collinear, means they're not on the same line. Non for not. Okay, so our third word is plane. Now, a plane is going to be a flat surface. Think of like a piece of paper. It's a really good representation. The one thing you got to remember though is it's infinite. So it goes out forever and it goes up and down forever in both directions. It's a 2-dimensional figure. To name a plane, we use our 3 points. So we're going to use 3 points to name a plane, and they need to be non-collinear. What does non-collinear mean? not in the same line. So they need to make some triangular type of pattern, like the three that you see on the picture. So this could be named plane, and you just write the word plane A, B, C. Order still doesn't matter. This is just as good to write plane B, C, A if you want, and you can mix those up however you like. There is another way. You'll sometimes see on a plane this scripted uppercase letter, and that's also naming the plane. So this would be plane M. Now planes can be kind of tricky. You really do have to remember that they're infinite in two directions, two dimensions. And we can't write arrows or anything. In order to draw the plane, we have to draw the lines along like it's a boundary, but there really isn't a boundary there. It goes on forever. So just keep that in mind. Okay, finally, before we go to our examples, we're going to look at what do we call points or lines that are in the same plane. Well, it's a lot like what we talked about with collinear up here. Co still means together, and it does here. It's going to be called coplanar. Coplanar. Coplanar means together on the same plane. So if you've got some objects that are all on the same surface, those would be called coplanar. And you can probably guess what they'd be called if they weren't all together. That's non-coplanar. So keep that in mind. Okay, let's check out some examples. In our first example, it looks like we have a plane and a couple of lines that are crossing right here, and one that's going through the plane. I hope you can see that as kind of stabbing right through that plane with points labeled in lines. So let's start with number one. Write another way to name plane J. And before we do, I'm going to write this little reminder to name these things. It's 1, 2, 3. 1 point names a point, 2 points names a line, 3 points names a plane. So in this case, we're asked to name plane J. So I'm going to look for 3 points in some non-collinear triangular kind of pattern. Let's see what I can find. Of course, they have to be in the plane. So how about, here's one, B, D, G. I could name those 3 points to name the plane. And I would just write plane B, D, G. As I see them here, here, and here. Not all in the same line. Okay, let's go to number 2. Another way to name line H. Line H, 2 points names a line. So on line H, that's this line here, I just need to name 2 points that are on that line, which would be, let's take B and C. Remember, this one has a symbol, so I'm going to put BC underneath that double arrow, line BC. Number 3, are point K and point G collinear? Now, a lot of people would say no to this, but this is a trick question because the reason people think no is they don't see a line. Collinear means the same, together on the same line, but they don't see a line drawn. But does that mean there isn't one? Well, no, I can draw one in. Sometimes you have to imagine it there if you can. And this one definitely has a line that could go through them. In fact, any 2 points would make a line from what we learned before. So I could just say yes. These would be collinear, and they lie on line KG. Number 4, are K, G, and F collinear? Okay, so again, we're looking for them to be on the same line, K, G, and F. Well, K, G, and F definitely are making a triangular kind of pattern. I have to make a bend there, so that's a definite no. They do not lie on the same line. They're non-collinear. Alrighty, number 5. We're going to name 3 collinear points. 3 points all in the same line. We already know that K, G, and F are not. Let's see if we can find 3 that are. I think this is our only shot right here. I see point D, C, and A. They're all on line H. Those would be collinear points, a set of 3. So I would write points A, C, and B. And the order I write those in doesn't matter. Number 6. Name a line that is non-coplanar. Oh, there's coplanar now. Now we got to think plane. Non-coplanar with line H. So it can't be sitting in the same plane with line H. Well, line H is sitting here in plane J, the one plane we have. So what's a line that's not sitting in that plane? Line I definitely sits in that plane, but this line here goes through the plane. So this is our answer. And it would have to be named with the 2 letters that we see on it, the 2 points, which are K and F. So that's my answer. Line KF. Alrighty, number 7. Name all objects that are coplanar to plane J. So any point or any line that is in plane J, we're going to say is coplanar with it. That looks like a lot of stuff. So let's get them listed. Let's start with the points. What points are coplanar? List all the points that are in that plane. Maybe alphabetically here. A, B, C, and D. Those are all in the plane. G and K are in the plane. The only ones that aren't are E and F. So I'm going to list them all. Now I separate point names with commas. A, C, making a list. B, D, G, and K. So that's the points. And what about lines? Are there any lines that are coplanar in plane J? And I think there definitely are. And I'll do this the easy way, I think, just to name line H. Line H, and then the second line is line I. And we have to write out those words. Line H and line I. Okay, next is name all objects that are non-coplanar to plane J. Not in the same plane with plane J. We kind of already talked about that a little bit. What points or lines do not lie in plane J? Well, here's an easy one. Point E is above the line. Point F is back here behind the plane, excuse me. So points E and F. And then, is there anything else, any points or any lines that aren't in plane J? Now, this line goes through plane J, but it's not in plane J because it's not entirely in it. It has to be the entire line in the plane. And so we would also say that line KF is non-coplanar. Okay, so for the last part of the check your understanding, I want you to pause the video, give them a shot, and then just start it up again, and you'll have a chance to check your answers. But let's see how you're understanding it. Give it a try. Okay, welcome back. Here's the answers. Maybe a little explanation too. Surface of a movie screen. That's like a piece of paper. It's flat. It's got the 2 dimensions. That's definitely a plane. Then from the picture, what point belongs to neither plane W or plane V? These two planes that are crossing each other. What point's not in either one? Well, that's this one right here, kind of sitting between them. That's point S. Now you can either write point S or the letter S. Just be sure you capitalize it. Okay, next, number 3. List all points shown that lie in plane W. So plane W has, I count 4 points. Q, T, O, and P. Those are the only 4 points I see on that lighter plane W. So I will list them as P, Q, O, and T. Remember commas between those. Number 4, are R and U collinear? Well, this is another trick question. Is there a line between them? Yes, it's just not drawn in, so you might have to draw that in yourself. I don't know how well you can see that on the video, but you can draw that line in, and they are definitely collinear. All sets of 2 points are collinear, because how many points does it take to give a line? Just 2. Are R, U, and T collinear? Are R, U, and T collinear? No, definitely not. I'm seeing that triangle shape. Those are non-collinear. And last, number 6, are lines RQ and PO coplanar? Do those 2 lines sit in the exact same plane? And let's see which plane. So if we start with RQ, that line's going through both of the planes. And so it's not in either plane. It just crosses through them. And then line M here, which is the line PO, that one's sitting in plane W, but it's not in plane V. So are they in the same plane? No, they're in different planes. These are non-coplanar. Okay, I hope you did well. Have a good one.